David incorporated the 1984 concept into his next album, Diamond Dogs. The first single from the LP was Rebel Rebel.
Rebel, rebel, put on your dress. Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess. Rebel, rebel, how could they know? Hot tramp, I love you so.
Bowie continued to act the rebel in his personal life. Although he was still married to Angie, David started a serious relationship with singer Ava Cherry, whom we'd met while touring.
She was just a young girl, a lot of eye candy, and, you know, you're on the road, you know, and he was always promiscuous along with Angie. They had a lifestyle that suited certain things.
Initially, David's wife seemed fine with the arrangement. But when Bowie moved to New York and began living with Ava, Angie's feelings changed.
She was jealous, she was upset, and even though she was doing what she wanted to do, for her it wasn't a two-way street. It was like, I want to play around, but I want you to be faithful to me.
By now, Bowie's method of writing songs was as unconventional as his marriage. He'd begun using a device he called cut-ups, a technique inspired by writer William Burroughs.
He would basically cut out words from an article, from a newspaper, from a book, wherever.
I tried doing it with diaries and things. I've used this method only on a couple of actual songs. What I've used it for more than anything else is igniting anything that might be in my imagination.
It's not because you're short of ideas necessarily, it's because it puts you into territories that you wouldn't otherwise get into. You wouldn't be led there by your own taste.
David continued his efforts to break the rules when he began planning the tour for Diamond Dogs. He envisioned an elaborate staging that would combine music, mime, and dance. Bowie wanted performance artist Tony Basil to choreograph the show, and his manager, Tony DeFries, spared no expense in his efforts to woo her.
When I was taken to dinner, David wasn't there, but there were several people with us, and the money that was being thrown around was a lot of money.
Even more money was spent on the production itself. And when the tour debuted in Montreal in June of 1974, it was unlike anything audiences had ever seen.
He was just willing to do theater, rock and roll, dance, story, everything.
It was very expensive. I can't see how they could have made a penny. I just think money was just going and going and going.
What he was focusing on at that particular time was his creative flow. David is a hands-on person on a creative level. But when it came to the business, I'm not quite sure if David was really involved.
But Tony DeFries was all business when he found out how much money the show was losing. He canceled the scheduled London dates. This action quickly got David's attention, and he met with his manager to find out exactly what was going on with his finances. David was shocked to learn that over the years, most of his earnings had been used to pay back the ongoing advances DeFries had been securing from RCA.
I do remember Tony saying, being in the room once when Tony gave some paperwork to a secretary and said, take it to David, don't worry, he'll sign anything.
I think it was a big slap in the face for him because, you know, you look back and you see the body of your work, and at some point, you want to see how much money you've made from that body of work, and there was nothing there for him.
David believed that he and DeFries were partners in main man management and had expected to share in the company's profits. But DeFries informed David that he alone was the owner of the operation. Bowie was no more than another one of Main Man's growing number of clients.
David's, because his brain wasn't there. His brain was, you know, the big picture, the stardom, the moving the culture. But obviously, the chickens came home to roost at a certain point.
At the age of 27, David Bowie was flat broke. The groundbreaking rock star had achieved worldwide success. But now, he would have to keep working and keep reinventing himself, just to survive. In 1974, David Bowie found himself in serious financial trouble. The rock star realized that developing an interest in the business side of his art was critical to his survival on the music scene. He quickly scaled back production on his extravagant Diamond Dogs tour. But although David was now cautious about how money was being spent on the concerts, his limited personal funds were still being depleted by his ever-growing cocaine habit.
His diet often at the time was, you know, cocaine and milk, so it was sort of pure white experience.
There's a fly floating around in my milk, and there's a foreign body in it, you see, and he's getting a lot of milk. It's kind of how I feel.
The destructive effects of David's addiction kept him underweight and paranoid about the world around him.
Oh, we're not stopped. Is there anything behind us?
No. Yes, there's a car.
But no.
Like Ziggy Stardust and Vince Taylor before him, David Bowie was falling apart.
He was playing with the whole idea of self-destructiveness and about what can happen to people when they take drugs, and you know, he lived dangerously.
But even under the influence, David was still exploring the boundless range of his creativity. He started work on his next album, Young Americans, by revisiting a childhood passion, rhythm and blues.
The man studied American R&B, make no doubt about it.
Soul music and R&B music definitely had a big influence for him growing up in England. So this was just a natural process to become involved with, you know, musicians of color.
Bowie's backup singers included Robin Clark, his girlfriend Ava Cherry, and Luther Vandross.
That's cool. That's cool. Next one. Got to do it this way to get it.
David called his new music Plastic Soul.
Plastic Soul just purely comes out of his sense of humor. That poking fun at, hey, look at me, I can do it too. And I'm not black, I'm not a soul brother. But he managed to capture what it was he needed to capture.
She wants a young American.
David recorded most of the songs for Young Americans in a little over a week. The speed at which he worked was due in no small part to his cocaine use.
It was the 70s. People were using cocaine thinking that it wasn't a bad drug.
Right, okay, and the last section.
Honestly, that was the word on the street, so we were all sucked into that. I was worried for his health. He was very, very thin. His face was as white as a sheet of paper, and he was scary looking. But damn it, he'd go in front of the microphone and he sang beautifully.
He wants a young American.
After completing the initial recording sessions for Young Americans, David collaborated with guitarist Carlos Alomar and friend John Lennon on a single for the album. Fame was especially personal for David. Through it, he expressed some of his frustrations about his finances and management.
It was actually written about his relationship with Tony DeFries.
It is the smoke screen that was created by DeFries. It's the illusion of fame.
Sort of like you think one thing is happening, but you turn around and your pockets are empty. You think you're a star, but then you find out that you can't pay your rent.
Fame became David Bowie's first #1 hit in America, but its success only further reminded him of his unhappiness with Tony DeFries. John Lennon was an old pro when it came to dealing with managers and agents, and counseled David on what he should do.
When John found out what was happening, he said, you need to take control of this.
David followed the former Beatles' advice and took legal action to terminate his contract with DeFries. David was able to get out of the deal by agreeing to grant DeFries a portion of the royalties from records made during the term of his contract with Main Man Management. Young Americans was David's biggest selling album in the US to date and made him a bona fide star in the all-important American market. But the career high point was soon followed by another personal low. In 1975, the 28-year-old singer moved to Los Angeles, where his cocaine habit finally caused him to lose touch with reality.
Los Angeles was one of the worst periods, I think, in my life, I think. I got into a lot of emotional and spiritual trouble there.
He told the story of waking up one morning in Los Angeles in the gutter, some gutter, he didn't know which gutter, and thought, if I don't do something about this, I'll die.
In June of that year, David took a break from music when an acting opportunity came his way. Director Nicholas Roeg was casting the part of an extraterrestrial in his latest film. David's name was among those suggested for the leading role. Physically, David was perfect for The Man Who Fell to Earth, a film about a space alien trying to save his drought-stricken planet.
He just looked like a person from another planet. At that time, he had the kind of strawberry red hair with the blonde streak, and he's very, very thin, and the two different colored eyes.
Although Bowie had limited acting experience, Nicholas Roeg felt David could handle the complexities of the role. But the director was concerned about David's reputation as a drug user.
When Nick and I went to first meet him, he said that during the movie, he would not be doing any drugs, so fine with us.
It's a fantastic movie about power, space, time, and a visitor. David Bowie stars in The Man Who Fell to Earth.
The Man Who Fell to Earth was only a modest success at the box office, but David's thoughtful performance earned him critical praise. In 1976, David released his next album, Station to Station, and unveiled yet another performance guise, the elegant, thin white Duke. The character was a far cry from the androgynous Ziggy Stardust.
He was doing the clean, chiseled look. The outfits were made specifically to give him a long, lean look.
Station to Station was David's highest-charting album since Diamond Dogs, and included the top single, Golden Years.
Golden